Good evening. It's February 28th, 2025. It's Friday, and I'm having a great opportunity and my pleasure speaking with a true World War II hero.
Oh, Jesus, here we go.
Mr. John J. Jeckovich.
Oh, stop it.
How are you doing today, Mr. Jeckovich?
Great, I'm doing great.
You're looking wonderful.
Yeah, I still got that thing on my shoulder.
I know. But you're looking wonderful.
Yeah.
You're looking chipper. Mr. Jeckovich is knocking on the door of 100 years old this year. Mr. Jeckovich was born in 1925. At that time, gasoline was 7 to 9 cents per gallon. Fill up your big car for $1.50 or $2. House is really nice for $2, $2,000, I should say. And a beautiful car was $500 new. Mr. Jeckovich lived through the Great Depression. How did that affect you?
How did it affect me? Probably I was too young to understand what was going on.
So you didn't think nothing was wrong?
No. We had Alice drive us around today.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, she's a good driver.
I watched her. She's a very
Well, she took me to the VA.
Yeah.
And I didn't get my ears checked either.
Next time. We have it scheduled for next time. She's a wonderful person. She wears many hats. She's always doing something.
Yeah.
She's the last of the hard-working people in this world.
Yeah.
She's a wonderful lady. She's a wonderful lady. Well, anyways, Mr. Jeckovich wrote a book several decades ago discussing his life and caring for his mother. Mr. Jeckovich's father died when he was 43 years old. So Mr. Jeckovich, at the age of 11, was the so-called caretaker for his mother. And as a result, Mr. Jeckovich stayed with her to her final days, aged 89. And he titled the book affectionately, Their Mother's Sons. It takes you from Mr. Jeckovich's 11, caring for his mother, his grammar school, his odd jobs he had, raising money, selling the Polish newspapers, working at a sheet metal place, working as an usher at 2 movie theaters, and also working at SS Kreisky's.
Yeah.
And then later, Mr. Jeckovich was drafted in World War II. He was shot up, beat up, stabbed, bombed, trench foot, and still suffers greatly from frostbite. They didn't equip the young boys back then with the proper clothing. And in the Battle of the Bulge, which was the last war Mr. Jeckovich was in, it was coming out of the Ardennes Forest, where the Americans never suspected this would ever happen, because the Ardennes Forest, if you can picture, is very thick woods. Can't get tanks through, can't get cars through. But the Germans attempted it, so Mr. Jeckovich was caught off guard with several other in his platoons and squadron. And it turned out to be about 600,000 Nazis to less than 50,000 American GIs. And Mr. Jeckovich's troops were in a Bastogne. And if the Nazis got a hold of Bastogne, it would be very bad for the Americans. So the air support couldn't come in for the American side because the weather was horrible. It was the coldest winter of record, horrible coldest winter of record, sometimes 30 degrees below. And Mr. Jeckovich was basically in a Bastogne. They were on rest and relaxation coming from another war. So they never anticipate this would happen. Eventually they were surrounded by Bastogne by the Nazis. And as a result, they lost almost all the men, with the exception of maybe a couple hundred, maybe less than that. And when Mr. Jeckovich was drafted into the war, he was affectionately referred to in his divisions. His division was called the Diaper Division. And the reason why was they referred to him as young kids. Not being sarcastic, the Diaper Division. But when Mr. Jeckovich ended the war, and he survived the Battle of the Bulge, he survived Bastogne, they had another name. They were no longer called the Diaper Division. Now they were called the Bulge Busters, which this YouTube is titled, the Bulge Busters John Jeckovich, or also they were called the Bloody Bastards of Bastogne. So it's a great story that goes from Mr. Jeckovich working at Kimberly-Clark for 35 years, owning a self-serve laundromat, snowplow business, construction, and carpentry business. So it's a wonderful story. And once again, his title is Their Mother's Sons. I get many text messages every day, Mr. Jeckovich. Where can I buy the book?
You can't.
The book
Not
is
for
not.
sale.
The book is not for sale, nor never will be. It's just trying to make the younger generation aware of World War II, and maybe make their lives just a little bit easier. Mr. Jeckovich's mind is like a library. He, around 100 years, he reads every day books, 3 newspapers every morning. Oh, and by the way, with no glasses. 3 newspapers every morning with new glasses. So Mr. Jeckovich is sharp as a tack, and he's sending out a good message. I have a lot of texts that came in, Mr. Jeckovich, so we'll simply read a few pages of your book that will hit the text. How does that sound to you?
What's that?
I'll only read a couple pages of your book today, and then we'll do the text.
Do the text now, yeah.
Well, let's just do 2 pages.
Okay,
so to open up my laptop.
Okay.
To open up my laptop to read your book, what's your dog tag number?
420965.
Okay, we're starting with chapter 1, and this chapter is titled Home, No Home. Home, No Home. Page 5. Our next move was a dingy red brick apartment on 13th Street. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
What do you remember about it?
I remember the bakery shop next door.
What do you remember about that?
I remember when they opened up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I could smell the baked goods coming out of the cellar.
Wasn't it at that time when you lived on 13th Street, the milk and the baked goods and most things were delivered by horse and buggy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It was on a ground floor in the rear next to an equally dingy tavern. What do you remember about the tavern?
I could smell the soup and beer.
Was there a lot of people in that tavern nightly?
Well, the crowd was in there, especially weekends.
What kind of people were they?
They're drinking people.
When we walked out of our apartment door, we could smell the musty odor of the beer coming out of the sidewalk grate from the cellar.
Yeah.
A few feet from our kitchen window.
Yeah.
Wow. I recall my mother washing clothes in the kitchen in an old washing machine that revolved metal cups.
Up and down.
Describe that to me. I never heard of that.
There were 3 rods coming out of the washing machine, and there was cups on it. The cups would turn and push out, and that's where the washing actually was over.
That must have been dangerous.
Yeah. Well, she got her on a ringer.
Oh, really? Tell me how.
She put the clothes through the ringer, caught her finger, and then opened this right up. I could see way up in here.
Wow. Oh my God. Did she go to the hospital?
Yeah.
Yeah. Going up and down, washing the clothes. My fondest memory of the place was Lane's Bakery.
Yeah, next door, yeah.
A few doors down where we lived. To get up early in the morning and walk out and down the street to see, there we go, the horse-drawn wagons with their loads of freshly baked bread and pastries going out on their deliveries was delightful. Not only was it the bakery was in stark contrast with the rest of the surroundings. What do you mean, what was the rest of the surroundings like?
Well, there's a couple beer joints.
Was there trouble there at night?
No, the trouble was usually on Saturday and Sunday. They working their ass off all week, and then they get out Saturday and Sunday. They start drinking, and then they go to hell.
So they worked at factories, right?
You know, factories and work their own business or whatever.
And then they'd raise hell.
Yeah.
To this day, anytime I get a scent of freshly baked bread, I still think of Lane's Bakery on 13th Street. Is that still today? When you smell a freshly baked bread?
Not there. I don't think it's there anymore.
No, but when you smell a freshly baked bread, do you automatically think of Lane's Bakery?
Well, I haven't smelled fresh bread yet for a while.
Yeah, I guess Publix is. When we moved to Niagara Street, you moved a lot. When we then moved to Niagara Street, which was farther away from the center of the city, I can remember how excited my mother was to see a kitchen sink larger than the basement she had been using. One had drawers and shelves with doors on them. This was the first place where we had a full bathroom, a sink, a bathtub, and a toilet all in one, and a door enclosing it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a full-blown bathroom you first had.
Yeah.
We were on the upper flat of two-story single-standing house, which had a small porch out front where we could sit and watch the cars go by on the street below. Well, that must have been fun. We did not have an automobile and did not get one until Steve was old enough to drive. My father walked to work, and where my mother worked, she took a bus which stopped across the street. Oh, that's pretty convenient. We walked to the local elementary school several blocks away, and since we came home
For lunch.
for lunch, I can recall listening to the radio and various serials on the air at the time of the day. We would then hurry back to school at the last minute as not to be late. It was here that my sister was involved in an automobile accident in the front of the house.
In the car.
Wow. My sister and a girl downstairs were playing in her brother's car parked in front of the house. A car came veering across the road and hit the car the girls were in. How did he hit the car? Was he drunk or something?
I don't know, he hit the car, the girls, where they were sitting, they got dropped off their seats.
Wow.
I think she got hurt in the knee, and Sally got bumped up on the face.
My sister suffered bruises and cuts. The girls downstairs had a broken leg and internal injuries and were hospitalized for several weeks. We did not stay long at this address, but I got the impression that things were improving generally for the family and that we would never go back to the places we occupied before. Orleans Avenue, wow, 3063 Orleans Avenue, with Mr. Jeckovich spent almost his entire childhood and adult life until he retired 45 years ago, and then he moved to Florida. 3063 Orleans Avenue was a final move for both my mother and father. It was also a place I would stay for the next half a century. That's interesting. Okay. The house on Orleans Avenue was newly built, probably a year old when my parents bought it. What do you remember about buying it? You said you delivered the
Well, my father had a mortgage with Belden. Belden was a Jewish real estate dealer.
And you'd go there and deliver the
I had to
payment.
go there every week with the cart, and he marked the cart, paid on it.
And you had to walk to the guy's house?
Yeah.
Wasn't that quite a ways away?
Well, he was up in the upper end section.
Like DeVoe or something.
Yeah.
It was a modest home compared to today's standards, rectangular in shape with a two-story, two-family structure with a kitchen, dining room, and living room, and 2 bedrooms and a small bath on each floor. We occupied the upper floor in the late summer of 1938. My parents had purchased the house on a modest down payment and a 20-year mortgage from Mr. Belden, a mortgage broker. We were told by my mother that when we moved in that summer, they only had $5 left to their collective names, so all the money went towards the house.
Yeah.
I see. The people living downstairs at the time of the purchase were sloppy and poor houses.
They were Scottish people.
They were sloppy?
Yeah, well, they raked the coals out of the furnace downstairs and throw the ashes on the floor in the cellar.
Wow.
Among other things.
One of my first assigned tasks was to clean out the basement of a large pile of ashes from the coal-burning furnace. I can remember taking 30 to 35 bushels of ash from the cellar and depositing them in the alley behind the house. So you put them in the alley to fill holes, right?
Yeah.
This was completely easy chore since the alley was full of holes that needed filling. The downstairs tenants did not stay long.
No.
Minutes, please. Surrounding the house were large empty fields with only 6 or 7 houses on the entire street.
14.
All right, stand by. So there was only 6 the houses based on the street.
Yeah, you could sit on a porch and go all the way up to the stadium, and
Wow.
definitely food market from there.
So when you moved in, the street was basically empty.
Yeah. Fields are empty.
Wow. Surrounding the house were large empty fields with only 6 or 7 houses on the entire street.
The street wasn't paved or nothing.
Wow. There were no sidewalks, and the street was unpaved. During the first winter, a V-plow pulled by a horse, I'll be damned.
Yeah.
David had snow plows with horses. Would come down the path in front of the house to clear away the snow. Preparing for the first winter was a learning experience. As we were heating with a coal furnace, a good supply of seasoned firewood had to be available all winter.
Yeah.
Where did you get the firewood?
Let's see, we got the firewood. We went out in the woods and cut the trees down and chopped it up.
You must have been in great shape. Wouldn't it be wonderful young kids today would have to cut up firewood? They'd be in great shape too. This was piled up along the west wall of the cellar and
For the
reached
winter times.
to the ceiling, extending most of the length of that wall. A coal bin had to be fabricated to hold at least 10 tons of pea coal. What's the difference between coal and pea coal?
Pea coal was smaller, regular coal was bigger.
So you put,
Pea coal you could let it go all night, and you could baste it, and it would stay up. Big coal to burn out, and that would be it.
so you had to keep the wood and the pea coal in the inventory.
Yeah.
When you cut down the woods for the trees for the wood, did your father and your brothers help?
No.
You did it yourself.
Well, let's see. I had. I don't think. No, none of the brothers helped me. No.
Did your father?
No.
Then why were you assigned to it?
Yeah.
Why were you assigned to it? No one else.
Well, I had that. What's his name? He helped me.
Okay.
He's my age.
At least 10 tons of pea coal for the use throughout the winter. Was the pea coal delivered?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They'd bring it right to the basement?
Yeah. Open the window in the basement, dump it in.
No kidding. Wow. Were they on horse and buggy?
No, that was a truck.
Okay. It had to be so arranged that the coal was accessible from a slot in the bottom of the bin and still contain the coal in the bin. Wow. Throughout preparations for the winter months, I do not recall either of my brothers participating to any great extent. What was usually the case, I was told that what we needed to be done, and I left to my own resourcefulness. There are some of the few times that my father communicated to me directly. It was usually in the manner of, do this or do that. Period. I was 13 years old and my brother was 15 and my younger brother 11, and this is the first winter on Orleans Avenue, which was actually 3063 Orleans Avenue, Niagara Falls,
Yeah.
New York, right? I enjoyed ice skating on the creek near our house and on the vacant lots surrounding us. You had vacant lots.
And then turn the fire hydrant, figure them out, ice skate and play hockey out.
I'll be damned. The first real hard freeze, we'd open the fire hydrant nearest the field and fought a good part of it. Steve and I and some of the neighborhood kids would play hockey all winter. We also played at night as there was a street light in the vicinity. Wow. Do you want me to keep reading this or get to the text messages?
And that's how I get the text messages.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got a lot of catching up to do here. Mr. Jeckovich, how did your war experience affect your life after the war?
After the war,
Yeah.
9.5.
Don't label this, I'll tell you.
Okay.
well, I kept thinking about Lape. I lost Lape.
Donald Lape was your partner, which had his...
Yeah, I lost Lape, and then I never used it. We didn't have a gun in the house before that. I didn't know how to shoot a gun.
So before you went into the war, you never owned a gun or shot a gun?
No.
During the war, you worked heavy-duty machine guns, which probably shot 1 million rounds during your portion of all the battles. And then once you left the war, you never owned a gun again?
No.
To this date? Mr. Jeckovich, what are your most cherished memories from the war?
Cherished memories for the war?
Yeah.
Oh, having a 3-day pass to go to Roseboro, and then going a weekend pass to Paris.
I see. Mr. Jeckovich, do you have any regrets about your wartime experiences?
No.
No. What advice would you give young people today, Mr. Jeckovich, about the importance of peace?
Of peace?
Yeah, the importance of peace.
Try to avoid a war. War is deadly.
Yeah, and the ones that hate the war the most are the frontline combat soldiers. Those guys hate the war the most, and it's understandably why. During World War II, there were 16,400,000 young men and women participating in World War II. Now, almost all of them are gone, and we have only about 6,000 true combat soldiers left. 6,000 left. They're most in their late 90s or early hundreds, and we're losing them at a rate of 150 men per day. So if you have any questions to a living World War II veteran, combat veteran is, not rear echelon, combat veteran, you text Mr. Jeckovich now at 407-366-0000. Text any questions. Mr. Jeckovich does answer all happily. Text Mr. Jeckovich at 407-366-0000. Mr. Jeckovich, at almost 100 years old, is in excellent condition. He jogged for 80 years, and when he started jogging, things were different 80 years ago. It wasn't acceptable. So what would people say to you?
Get off the road, bum.
Get off the road, you bum. They didn't understand he was jogging for health. They thought he was jogging because he had no transportation. They also throw empty cans of Genesee beer at him, and one time one guy popped him in the head with a full can of Campbell soup. But ironically, all those people that were sarcastic to Mr. Jeckovich 80 years ago when he started running, I assure you, they're all pushing up daisies today. Mr. Jeckovich lives by the motto that he's got 2 doctors, his left leg and his right leg, and it's just that simple. And it's just that simple. So, let's see, minutes please.
Six.
Mr. Jeckovich, what were the biggest lessons you learned from your time in the military?
But keep your mouth shut and your eyes open.
Ah, okay. Okay. Mr. Jeckovich, where were you exactly born and raised?
On 3063 Orleans Avenue.
You were raised in Niagara Falls, New York?
Oh, yeah.
Did you enlist or get drafted?
I got drafted.
Tell us the reason why.
The reason why I wanted to prolong myself being out of the service so I'd take care of my mother.
That's right. Mr. Jeckovich could have enlisted like his 2 brothers did and got some really easy jobs. Like, for example, one of his brothers enlisted and he never left the United States. He was teaching youngsters how to drive a Jeep. Well, if you get drafted, you don't get that opportunity. When Mr. Jeckovich waited to get drafted so he could spend more time caring for his mother, and then you get usually the front line like Mr. Jeckovich did. Front line like Mr. Jeckovich did. Mr. Jeckovich, what do you remember about D-Day?
D-Day? Oh, that was Sunday afternoon. And they said, come over the radio, the United States and their allies have invaded Europe.
Wow. What do you remember about December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor?
Pearl Harbor?
Where were you?
Where was I?
Pearl Harbor.
I was probably skating on the creek.
Uh-huh. So you weren't old enough to be in the service then.
No.
But what did your mother say when the news spread fast?
She says, I'm afraid they're going to get you.
And they did.
Yeah.
Mr. Jeckovich still has shrapnel in his leg from a dirty bomb. A dirty bomb was a bomb that blew over his head, and the Nazis put in it like old razor blades.
That's the one that killed Leif?
Yeah, old razor blades. They put in it old tools, anything nasty that could spread a long area. When Mr. Jeckovich was in a foxhole with a beautiful young boy, Donald Leip, a teenager, from that same bomb blew off Leip's head, Donald Leip's head, and the only thing left was his pair of glasses hanging from one ear. Mr. Jeckovich removed the glasses and wrote a beautiful letter to Donald Leip's mother and father. At that time, Mr. Jeckovich was injured. He was sent to Paris to recover, but he still has that medal. Still has that medal in his leg, and anytime he goes through airport security, it goes off. Ironically, the story doesn't end here. Donald Leip's brother relocated to Florida many years ago, and we just found out when it was too late that Donald Leip's brother lived 2 blocks away from Mr. Jeckovich for 20 years. It would have been beautiful if they would have known. It would have been great communications and going over the memory and respect for Donald Leip. But we found
Well, you don't know. He might have had a different attitude.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe he stayed out of the army.
Maybe.
Stayed out of the war, yeah.
But the fact remains that
Yeah.
we found out too late that his brother was living 2 blocks
So
from me
maybe
for
his
20 years.
family, the Lake family is still around in Daytona Beach.
I'll look into it. What's the minutes?
2.5.
What's that?
Time's up. Hold on a second, Mr. Jeckovich. Mr. Jeckovich, what type of work were you doing before you joined before you were drafted?
Before I was drafted, I worked for C.E. Crosdale.
And what did you do there?
Sheet metal work.
Sheet metal
Put
work.
up duct work. I worked with my uncle. My uncle was a real smart guy. I loved him.
Your Uncle Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a 3rd grade education, but he's extremely...
3rd grade education, yeah. They depended on it. Crosdale depended on him.
Yeah. And you
Draw
worked
up
in
the
all
layouts and everything.
And you worked in all the factories putting up sheet metal.
Yeah.
Wow.
Duct work.
That must have been hard work. Didn't it?
Just under 2.
Yeah, carbide. I get home all full of carbide. Couldn't get it off your skin.
Yeah.
Carbon too.
Black. How many minutes?
I'm just under 2.
It was interesting when you were working at Croisdale's one time. It was the middle of the winter. And tell us when you're on a 2nd-story building and you fell.
Oh, I was putting the hooks on the roof. So when the ice came down, the hook would break up the ice. And the old guy was on the scaffold, soldering the gutter. When I fell off the roof, I went over his head.
You went over from the 2nd story.
Yeah.
You went over his head. Were you injured when you hit the ground?
No, I got hit. I fell in a snow pile.
Okay, so luckily there was 4 feet of snow.
No, he said, get your ass up and get the hell up there and get
Tell me
working.
this again. You fell off a 2nd-story building and you hit the snow. You weren't injured, but what did your boss say to you
He
now?
said, get back to work.
He said what?
Quit fooling around.
Well, how exactly did he say it?
He was mad. He was mad.
You said get your ass, you
Yeah,
said.
because I could have hit him, knocked him off the roof, off the scaffold.
Yeah. Could you imagine if it happened today? It wouldn't go down like that.
No, not at all.
You would have 18 different lawyers on it.
It's a different generation for sure.
So he said get your ass back up there and start fooling around.
Yeah.
Wow, minutes?
35 seconds.
Do you remember that fall?
Huh?
You still
Oh,
remember?
yeah.
Did you hit hard?
Well, I fell in a good snowbank.
And did you get right up to the roof again?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. What a
20
generation.
seconds.
What a beautiful generation. These guys work hard.
Yeah.
These guys work hard. Wow. Well, we have another one in the books, Mr. Jeckovich.
I gotta go pee. Don't look at
Jen,
All righty.
set that.
Don't leave.
No, Jen's taking you.
All right.
Don't leave.
All right.
We're not going nowhere, we're right here.